Hello everyone and welcome back to the Green Developer channel. Today I want to share with you 3 tips that will help you through the process of learning programming. So let's get right into it. Actually, before I get started, I just want to point out the fact that there's way more than those 3 tips that I could be sharing with you today. But if you're actually in the process of learning programming, you probably have so much on your plate already that I think I'm going to stick to only 3 just so that's a little bit more manageable for you all. But if those 3 tips are useful to you guys and you want to have more, make sure to leave a comment down below to let me know that you want more of these, or maybe hit subscribe if you would like to be notified next time I post one of these videos. Alright, now let's get started for real. Tip number 1, if you're just getting started with programming and you're not quite sure how to go about it, what I suggest you do first is pick a lane. Programming is amazing because it allows you to touch on so many subjects and, work with a bunch of different platforms and basically do whatever your heart wants with it. The problem is when you're just starting out, you have so much on your plate already that the more you specify what you're actually trying to learn, the easier it's going to be to get the basics out of the way and just feel better about your programming as a whole down the road. So what I suggest is that you stick to one specific type of programming or one specific platform or type of application you want to be creating so that you really get those basics nailed down before you kind of try to expand on different types of projects and other type of platforms that you can use to reach your projects and accomplish your goals. So think about what you want to achieve, whether it's making video games or mobile apps or web applications or even data analysis or machine learning or something like that. Try to pick a specific subject and kind of stick to that line of programming until you get a good grasp of the basics. And once you've figured out kind of the foundation and the core principles of programming through that lane that you've decided at first, it's going to be really easy once you have an idea for a different project to just jump on that and figure the specifics at that point. But at first you'll do much better if you focus on that one specific lane, that one specific technology stack, or core type of project, so that you don't get lost too much in those specifics. Number 2, make sure to move away from tutorial projects as soon as possible. Now, it's obviously normal if you're a beginner programmer to use those tutorials to kind of make you aware of what's available to you as a developer on the platform that you decide to work with. But as soon as you kind of have a grasp of what's available and what you can do with the platform you decided to work on, it's really important that you think of a project on your own and start applying those things that you learn to something that's not going to be holding your hand all the way through. Now, that doesn't mean not Googling for answers, or that doesn't mean that you won't have to search and look at other tutorials to kind of fill in the blanks of what you might not know already to try to build that project. I'm just saying, build something that's not going to have your hand held from the very beginning all the way to the end of a project. Something that's going to have some sort of uncertainty to it so that you kind of have to work through problems on your own for the first time. And it's going to feel like a huge hurdle at first because it's going to feel like all the work you put in doing those project tutorials and things like that, you're going to feel like all of a sudden everything got so much more difficult and so much more complicated. But that's normal, and it's to kind of get away from that fear and that feeling as quickly as possible that you shouldn't stick to those tutorials for too long. But really, I want to emphasize, it's normal that you feel that way. That's kind of a trap that people get into with tutorials, and don't worry, it wasn't wasted all the work that you put into tutorials, and it's going to be a first step to kind of get into programming, and it's totally normal. It's actually still good to keep looking at tutorials so you're kind of made aware of the other things that you can use on the platforms that you're going to be using, and you have more ideas about how to use certain technologies or certain methods and tricks to make your code more readable or your project more interesting to share with people. So don't feel bad about using tutorials as a whole to kind of get you ideas, but just don't get stuck in them doing only that and not working on personal projects. Because the reality is, as a developer, a good part of the work is actually just that, being faced with something that's completely uncertain, something you've never done before and you have no idea how to do, and going through the steps of solving that problem, researching how it can be done, looking at tutorials to fill in the blanks of what can be done, and use those tools to build something completely from scratch and on your own. Moving away from those handheld tutorials and into your own type of self-learning through projects, you'll kind of be developing that skill that's at the root of everything you need to do as a developer, figuring out things from scratch and kind of filling in the blanks with information that you can research online. Tip number 3, and this one kind of assumes that you're following tip number 2, so if you decided to ignore that one, you're kind of out of luck. That's just how important that one is. Think of your journey as a developer, as well as the projects that you're going to be building, as marathons rather than being sprints. Software projects are really complicated and abstract beasts that have a lot of moving parts, a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of things to understand about them. It's normal for it to be slow. It's normal for features to take a little bit of time to build, and it's normal for everything to just be built one step at a time. It's going to take a while, and that applies to how you're learning programming too. You're not going to learn everything in one day. You're not going to learn everything in 1 month. Just make it a point to always be, moving a little bit forward with your learning and with your projects. Make sure to think about rewarding yourself for all those small steps that you take and not just those really big milestones that you reach. Instead of working off those really big milestones to feel like you're moving forward, try to, kind of find some intermediate milestones, some smaller goals that you can achieve so that you actually feel like you're moving forward and you feel more motivated because of it. To go back to that running analogy, if you're running a marathon, you're not going to be thinking that you want to, step 1, run 13 miles, and step 2, run another 13 miles. You're gonna go crazy if things start getting hard at mile 4 and you still have so much to do before you reach that first milestone. But instead of that, if you're just thinking about, reaching 1 mile at a time and checking that mile every time you get to it, you'll feel like you're actually checking stuff off your list, and you'll feel like you're progressing a lot more and like you've actually been doing good work because you're checking off those milestones as they come. And if that becomes even too difficult, you can always, scale down the size of your goals so that they're even smaller and you check them off even faster so you can always see the progress that you're making. If you're running that marathon and even getting to the next mile is starting to be too difficult, you can start thinking about just reaching the next street corner or just getting through the next block or something like that. Use that same principle when you're working on your own personal projects. So I don't know, if you're working on a game, rather than thinking about getting all the player mechanics done as a milestone, think about all the small mechanics individually. Even beyond that, think about all the player inputs as small victories in themselves. Break it down as small as possible so that you feel like you're progressing. And I know I'm looking at it kind of through a motivation standpoint and saying that as soon as you scale back down those type of goals that you have for yourself, you'll feel like you're moving faster and that you're actually accomplishing stuff because you'll be checking things off the list. But that idea is also going to help you just be a better programmer as a whole and going to make you work more efficiently, learn more efficiently, because as a whole, in programming, like I said, projects are big, they're complicated, and so breaking them down in smaller chunks is also going to make you better, as it's going to be easier to kind of understand them and go about fixing them and finding ways to accomplish them. In the end, the big thing is mostly that by doing that, you'll keep your motivation higher, and that's really the goal, because programming is really going to be a long, hard process to get through and get really good at. And the more you stay up with it and the more you keep at it, the better you're going to be in the end. And everything you need to do has to be done in an idea of keeping at it over the long time. And because the longest you keep at it, the better you're going to be, and there's not really any shortcuts to it. So finding ways to keep your motivation up is always going to be a good idea to kind of get through it and get good at it. Alright, so I hope this was helpful to some of you guys out there. If you liked this video and it was helpful to you, make sure to hit the like button. It helps me tremendously. If you want to see more videos like this one, more tips about learning programming or any other type of programming related work, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you're notified next time I post a video. And if you want to support this channel even more, you can check out the Patreon down below. It's by no means necessary, but it does help me buy coffee, and I can turn that coffee into more content for you all. So there's that. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you all next week, and until then, take care.